Don't be afraid to take classes that might even have a perspective that you disagree with, but at the same time, think critically. Always try to look for assumptions and the reasoning behind, what's being argued for, and use your own free time to try to explore different views.
Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to the Framework Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Ken Engel, president of Southeastern University. Joining me, as always, our co-host, Michael Steiner, SCU Senior Vice President for Advancement and Innovation. We're glad you're joining us for this special series, Designed to Lead, where faith, science, culture come together. In this journey, we'll explore how the idea of intelligent design really shapes far more than, just scientific theory. It really speaks into our leadership, our values, how we live out our faith in today's world. And we're excited to introduce today's guest, Casey Luskin. Casey is a scientist, attorney with a PhD in geology, a law degree, 2 additional degrees in earth sciences. He serves as associate director of the Center for Science and Culture at the Discovery Institute, where he co-leads the Intelligent Design 3.0 research program, advocates for academic freedom and science education. Dr. Luskin, thanks for joining us and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, it's a privilege to have this conversation. You have a truly unique background. I shared a little bit about it in science, law, advocacy. Walk us through that journey. What sparked your passion for this whole conversation, intelligent design? How did that calling shape your journey and where you are today?
Sure, I'll try to give you the short version of the story, but I was an undergraduate student at the University of California, San Diego, taking lots of courses in evolution. I was a science major, and I was taking many courses in evolutionary biology, and I felt like they were just not explaining how many of the complex features that we see in living organisms could have arisen through a Darwinian mechanism, random mutation, natural selection. I felt like a lot of my questions were not getting answered. And at the end of my freshman year, a friend recommended that I read the book Darwin's Black Box by Michael Behe. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Michael Behe. He's a very well-known, biochemist in the intelligent design community. He's a professor at Lehigh University. And his book talked about this idea of irreducible complexity, that there are many features in nature that require many parts to be present before they will function to give you any advantage to help you survive and reproduce. And these kinds of irreducibly complex features, they cannot be built in the step-by-step mechanism that Darwin's theory requires. And so he made a case that this reflects intelligent design. Well, I was sold. I felt like Michael Behe had put into words what my sort of rudimentary freshman brain was thinking. And then fast forward a few years, I took more courses in evolution, and my classes would never give us the opportunity to actually learn about this debate between intelligent design and evolution. I'd read a bunch of ID books. I was kind of like an ID junkie during my undergraduate years, reading all these ID books, but then taking evolution courses. And my professors would never let us have a debate or a conversation about these topics. So I started a student club called the Intelligent Design and Evolution Awareness, or IDEA Club for short. And to make a long story short, that club kind of took off, and we got a lot of attention, both locally and nationally. Ended up starting a nonprofit to help other students start similar idea clubs on their own college and high school campuses. And so that's kind of how I got involved with intelligent design and connected to Discovery Institute.
That's awesome. And so walk us through a little bit about the work that you do now. What is the Research Lab, the Intelligent Design 3.0? Walk us through some of the things that you're doing at the Discovery Institute.
Sure. So one of the most exciting things for me that's been happening in intelligent design over the last 10, 15, 20 years is the growth of our research program. We are funding scientists all around the world who are looking at scientific evidence for intelligent design, looking at the complexity of proteins, or looking at the complexity of how the building blocks of life might have arisen on the early Earth, or looking at questions like the fine-tuning of the laws of nature and how they show that basically our universe, the laws seem to be like they're balanced right on the edge of a knife. And if they were only slightly different, we would not be able to have life in our universe. So we're funding research into scientists who are looking at this evidence. And a big part of what I do is just to manage that research program. We are evaluating grant requests. We are sending funds out. People say, hey, I need an expert in proteomics. Can you connect me with somebody? Well, we have a growing network of scientists. And so we'll connect scientists and help them to be able to collaborate with each other. A big part of this also is we have a network of literally now it's a few thousand scientists in the ID research community. And so we're trying to help folks to build collaborations, network with each other, and grow this research community. So it's really exciting. We have so many good problems, like, way too much to do, way too little time, way too many people who want to connect with us and collaborate with us. It's just, it's more than 1.5 or 2 full-time jobs, but it's a lot of fun to see. And one of the most exciting parts of the research program is to see that we are producing peer-reviewed papers in mainstream scientific journals. We had a conference last weekend where I did the latest tally. We're now up to 311 peer-reviewed scientific papers supporting intelligent design. So our research program has been very successful, and we're really optimistic about what the future holds.
That's great. And it seems like science today often requires more than just research, and that is so vital. But today it takes a lot of resilience and even courage. How do you stay grounded in your values as both Christ-centered and a scientist, if you will?
Well, yeah, I am a Christian, and I think that, one of the things about following Christ is he forces you to be humble, right?
Yes.
I mean, on a daily basis, you realize that you're a sinner and that really he's the only one who deserves the glory. I'm speaking right now in my own Christian faith. You're constantly faced with your own inadequacies, your own failings, and you realize that, he's the only one who really can do it right and can get it right. So thankfully, we have Christ to follow as our example, but I don't care what you're doing in life, whether you are doing what I do, managing research, or whether you're the president of a university, or, whether you are a public school or private school, high school science teacher, whatever, if you follow Christ, he's going to keep you humble, because he's going to help you always know you need him every single day. So, I mean, that's a big part of it. Of course, I stumble in that too, not always being as humble as I should be, but it's just a daily thing. Yeah. So, but I think also, in the intelligence design community, we face a lot of pushback and what I would call unfair treatment and discrimination from some folks in the mainstream scientific community. We have papers that get submitted to mainstream journals, and sometimes they get rejected, not on the basis of the quality of those papers, but simply because they don't like the perspective that is being argued from, or maybe they know that the author is a supporter of intelligent design. We've seen this kind of thing happen many, many times. So that in and of itself teaches you perseverance.
Right,
you just don't give up. You know that you've done good work. You put, your best arguments forward, your best research abilities into this paper, into this work. And so you're not going to just give up. You're going to keep trying. And eventually, hopefully the work does get published. In fact, I'll give an example without giving any names, but there's a very good researcher in our community who had submitted a paper to a mainstream scientific journal looking at the origin of biological information. And they sat on this paper for over a year. They didn't even give him a decision on this paper. And eventually they rejected it because I think it was too intelligent design oriented for the paper, even though it was a very quality paper. So he didn't give up. He persevered. He submitted it to another journal, also a mainstream scientific journal, and it just got accepted. So, you just keep trying, and that's how science goes, And the reality is everybody in science has stories like this, even if you're not from intelligent design. You just got to keep persevering.
Well, that's what, you guys are really fighting two fronts at the same time. You're fighting, the issue of trying to get this idea of intelligent design, this theoretical but very scientifically theoretical concept accepted, adopted in the world. That's one side of it. But the other side is you're exposing and trying to break through what's becoming increasingly this insular idea in the scientific community that we don't like new ideas, period. Not just intelligent design, but any new ideas. We don't embrace new ideas. It's hard to break into, and it's so interesting because for an idea, right, a way of doing life that's supposedly based off of objective truth that should be open to new resources and new data and accepting what the data sees, it can become so dogmatic. Like you don't think of scientists as being dogmatic, but it's there. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in that field, what that means, and how are you guys pushing against not just getting ID accepted, but also pushing against this dogma that we've got?
Oh, that's such a great question, Dr. Steiner. And you really did hit the nail on the head of a big problem in the scientific community today. I mean, if you think back in the 1970s, there was that famous historian of science, Thomas Kuhn, who wrote The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. He talked about how scientists who are proposing new ideas often face intolerance from the scientific community. So this is nothing new. It's nothing unique to intelligent design. But I do have to say that I would say in the last couple of decades, we have seen that the scientific community, unfortunately, is becoming more politicized, and it's becoming more and more difficult for minority scientific views to gain a hearing. I think that we've seen a lot more politicization as, people are citing the consensus more and more to shut ideas down that they disagree with. And that is a really unhealthy place for the scientific community. I mean, if an idea is wrong and there's good peer review reasons to not, publish it, fine, don't publish it. But when you are rejecting an idea simply because it disagrees with the prevailing ideas in the scientific community, that's dangerous, because if minority scientific views, if they don't have the opportunity to be heard, then no scientific revolution can ever take place, because every new scientific theory starts off as a minority scientific view. Yep. And if we don't give those new views hearings, you'll never be able to see science progress. So I think that, anybody who's been following scientific debates over the last few years with COVID, global warming, vaccines, all these things, and I'm not taking positions on these things, I'm just saying there are credible people with different voices, and yet there's been a lot of sort of shutting down of voices, and that's never good, regardless of which side you land on.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that we talk a lot about on this podcast is how faith informs leadership. And in your work, especially defending educators, students, how has your faith shaped your commitment to scientific integrity and academic freedom?
Oh, appreciate that question. I think that for me, I went to public schools, from kindergarten through my master's degree, Dr. Engel. And for me, I always was learning the pro-evolution only viewpoint in all of my classes, And so but on my own free time, especially in college, I was researching intelligent design and appreciating there's a really fascinating scientific debate there. Yep. But that took me a lot of time.
Sure.
My own free time. I had to be very proactive to be able to inform myself. And so one of my goals is that I just want students to be able to make up their minds with full access to the evidence. Wherever they land, whatever sort of viewpoint they end up taking, as long as they had access to all the evidence, all the information, then I can sleep well at night knowing that, at least they had the opportunity to find the truth. But a lot of students today, and I was one of them, I don't think that they were given a fair opportunity to find the truth. I had to work extra hard to be able to find the truth. And so for me, I just want to give students the access to find the truth. How does my faith inform that? Maybe it's just a sense of, justice and fairness that, people without faith have those same things, because we're all made in the image of God. We all, believe in justice and fairness, whether whatever your religious or non-religious background might be. But from my view, that certainly comes from, my conscience that God has given me. I want to see fairness. I want to see justice. And I want students to be able to not be having evidence censored from them in the classroom. So that's a big part of what gets me up in the morning is basically making sure that students have access to all the evidence.
Yeah. I love it. And so what advice would you give? We have a lot of listeners, right, who are, they're deep believers. They have this faith. They're embracing this truth, and they may want to step into some of these scientific fields. Man, we have a lot of pre-med majors doing some incredible research in our College of Natural and Health Sciences. What advice would you give to them as they're stepping into this field? How can they stay true to what they believe are their values, what they've accepted, without conforming to this, just agree with the consensus?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm sure that your students at SCU are getting a great education, so I'm not worried about that. But what I do say to students is, don't be afraid to study evolution. Don't be afraid to challenge yourself. In fact, I took every opportunity I got to study evolution. And what I found was the more I studied it, the more reasons I had to actually be skeptical. Yep. And so but again, it took me being proactive to actually look into the evidence on my own free time that may have been left out of these pro-evolution only courses. So I would say, don't be afraid to challenge yourself. Don't be afraid to take classes that might even have a perspective that you disagree with. But at the same time, think critically. Always try to look for assumptions and the reasoning behind, what's being argued for, and use your own free time to try to explore different views that maybe are showing the pro-intelligent design view. the internet can be good and bad. There's different sides to it, but one of the good things about it is it has made it very easy to access information that in the previous years was very hard to access. When I was a student, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have a bunch of great websites out there with intelligent design podcasts and documentaries. So go and explore those pieces of evidence online in your own free time, and you'll be able to get informed.
Yeah. We're here at SU, we're pretty mindful and definitely very intentional in leading with vision, especially we're living in a divided culture, it seems, and in a time when culture often seems divided, especially around subjects and issues like science and faith. How do you stay hopeful about the future of research and the future of dialogue?
Such a great question, Dr. Engel. The reality is I think that our culture has a lot of challenges right now in front of it in the area of dialogue. People have always had views, but it seems like people are less willing to have civil conversations with folks that they disagree with in the past. I think the number one antidote to that is to expose yourself to people who have views that you might not share, okay? Make friends with your next door neighbor, the person in the cubicle next to you, or somebody at the local pub or whatever, or the local coffee shop who has a totally different view than you do. I'm not saying that you have to adopt their view, but it will help you understand their view better. And what that does, when you understand somebody else's view, then you're not afraid to have those conversations. You're not afraid to wade into those territories that might be a little bit controversial. You're not going to be feeling the need to get emotional or a little bit, feisty about these hot topic issues of the day, because you're going to already know where you stand. You know how to defend your views, and you know how to interact with people. So don't be afraid to talk to folks who disagree with you and get informed. The more informed you are, the more confident and comfortable you're going to be talking about these things, and you're going to be more and more willing to have those conversations. But, most folks who I know are Christians, thankfully, do fall into this category where they care enough to actually be informed and have civil conversations. But our culture as a whole, it's not going in a great direction. That's bad news. But the good news is that if you do get informed and you do take the time to have these conversations, you're going to stand out more and more and more in a good way, in a culture that is going in the wrong direction. So it's just another way to be a good witness, and I think show that we have strong arguments as folks who follow the Christian faith. We have strong arguments that we believe and we're confident in, and you'll stand out more and more as our culture, unfortunately, gets less and less civil.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And if I can turn this question into you and your leadership, you are working with scientists who, even though you're talking about this singular idea, it's not like they all agree either, right? There's not this idea that you have got, a bunch of people all saying the same thing in the same way. You're working with people that have so many different viewpoints, but they're all trying to accomplish that same goal. How do you foster that collaboration between people who are incredibly smart but have all those different viewpoints?
Oh, what a great question. We encourage diversity of viewpoints in the ID community. I think that diversity of views and a little bit of healthy disagreement here and there is very, very good sign of an active and robust research program. So we encourage folks to have those dialogues. In fact, just last night, we had a visiting scientist here at Discovery Institute. He's a PhD in bioinformatics, one of the smartest people in our community, and he takes a slightly different view on sort of the nature of the genome than another very good scientist in our community who's also one of the smartest people I know. So two of the smartest people I know take slightly different views, and I would love to get them in a room together. And my sense is that actually they're both partly right in the way that they take their views on the way the genome works. It's probably not an either or, it's probably a both and. I won't bore you guys with the details of that. But when two really smart people have slightly different views, they probably both have something good to say. And, but we encourage folks to have those dialogues because it's a sign of a healthy research program.
Yeah, that's well said. Well said. Well, Dr. Luskin, it's been a real honor having you on the podcast, and you've given us so much to think about, from the scientific curiosity to courage and leadership and the power of integrating faith with, intellectual pursuit. So, just thankful that you were able to join us today.
Appreciate the great questions. Very insightful about the challenges facing science and also our culture today. And you guys are right on the money. So thanks a lot.
I love it. And if you want to stay connected with Dr. Luskin, make sure you check out the Discovery Institute and the ID 3.0 research program. Go to discovery.org. Follow him on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, their research, so you can keep up to date with all the exciting things happening in the field of intelligent design. Thank you so much for listening to Framework Leadership. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks for joining us on Framework Leadership. If you're watching on YouTube, hit like and subscribe so leadership insights keep coming your way. You can also catch every episode on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And for bonus resources, subscribe to the Framework Leadership newsletter at kentingle.com. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Kent_Ingle and at Dr. Michael Steiner, and on X at Kent_Ingle, and on Facebook at Kent.Ingle to stay up to date with the podcast and everything happening at Southeastern University.
Before you go, here's something every freedom-loving parent and patriot needs to hear. The battle for the next generation is happening right now in our classrooms and colleges, and I wrote a book to help you fight back. College Without Communism is officially out now. It's your guide to exposing the lies, defending truth, and finding real alternatives to woke indoctrination. Whether you're sending a kid to college or just to know what's really going on behind the scenes in education, this book is absolutely for you. So head to kentingle.com today. Get the truth, equip your family, and change the culture.